Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies, nickels, and dimes every single day without giving them a second thought, tossing them into jars, leaving them in cup holders, or casually handing them over at the grocery store. But what if I told you that one particular dime, a 1989 P1 dime to be exact, could be worth an absolutely staggering $4.8 million. Yes, you heard that right, not 4,000, not 40,000, but $4.8 million for a coin that was meant to be worth just 10 cents. This isn't some ancient Roman artifact or a gold doubloon from a sunken pirate ship. This is a modern American dime that could be hiding in your change right now. And before we dive deep into why this particular coin has collectors, investors, and treasure hunters absolutely losing their minds, let me tell you something that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. This 1989 P dime isn't the only fortune hiding in plain sight, because after we uncover every shocking detail about this remarkable coin, I'm going to reveal another dime from the 1990s that's worth millions. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around until the very end, because what I'm about to share about that second coin will absolutely blow your mind. But first, let's talk about this 1989 P dime and why it's become one of the most sought-after error coins in American numismatic history. Now, 1989 might not seem like a particularly special year in coinage history. It wasn't a centennial anniversary, there were no major redesigns, and the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of dimes just like they did every single year. And that's exactly what makes this story so incredible, because somewhere in the massive production run of 1989 P dimes, something went catastrophically wrong at the Mint, and that mistake created what is now considered one of the holy grails of modern coin collecting. To understand why this coin is worth so much, we need to talk about what makes an error coin valuable in the first place. You see, the United States Mint has incredibly strict quality control procedures. Every single coin that comes off the production line is supposed to meet exact specifications for weight, diameter, composition, and design. But despite all the technology, all the inspections, and all the safeguards, mistakes still happen, and when they do, those mistakes can create coins that are worth exponentially more than their face value. The 1989 P dime we're talking about today has what collectors call a multiple error combination. And this is where things get really interesting, because this isn't just one mistake, it's several errors that occurred simultaneously during the minting process, creating a coin so unique that when the first specimen was discovered, experts initially thought it might be a sophisticated counterfeit because they simply couldn't believe the Mint had let something like this slip through. The primary error on this coin is what's known as a transitional error, which occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Now, normally, dimes are struck on planchets that are 17.91 millimeters in diameter and weigh 2.268 grams. Composed of a copper-nickel-clad composition, but this particular 1989 P dime was struck on a planchet that was intended for a quarter, meaning it's significantly larger than a normal dime. And if that wasn't remarkable enough, this planchet also had what's called a wrong metal error, because instead of the standard copper-nickel-clad composition, this planchet was composed of a silver alloy that was supposed to have been phased out of circulation decades earlier. Think about that for a moment. This coin has not one, not two, but three major errors. It's the wrong size, it's the wrong metal composition, and on top of that, it also exhibits what's called an OFF center strike, meaning the design wasn't properly centered when the dies came down to strike the coin, creating a crescent-shaped blank area on one side of the coin where you can actually see the raw planchet. But wait, there's more, because when this coin was examined under high-powered magnification by professional graders, they discovered something even more extraordinary. There was evidence of a double strike, meaning the coin had been struck by the dies not once but twice, and the second strike was slightly rotated from the first, creating a ghostly doubling effect on the lettering and design elements that's visible even to the naked eye. Now, you might be wondering, how does something like this even happen at a modern mint with all its technology and quality control? Well, let me walk you through the probable scenario of how this incredible error was created. And I have to warn you, this gets a bit technical, but stay with me because understanding the creation process makes you appreciate the rarity even more. And remember, we still have that second incredibly valuable dime to talk about, so don't go anywhere. The minting process begins with blank planchets being fed into a press. These planchets are supposed to be sorted by denomination, so dime planchets go to dime presses, quarter planchets go to quarter presses, and so on. But occasionally, especially during shift changes or when different denominations are being run on the same equipment, planchets can get mixed up. Now, for this 1989 P dime, what likely happened was that a silver quarter planchet from an experimental or commemorative run somehow got mixed in with the regular dime production. This planchet then made its way to the dime press, and when the dies came down to strike it, they struck a dime design onto what was essentially a quarter-sized silver planchet. The off-center strike probably occurred because the oversized planchet didn't sit properly in the collar die that's designed to hold a smaller dime-sized planchet in place. So when the upper and lower dies came together, the planchet was slightly off position, creating that dramatic off-center effect, and then, through some additional malfunction, possibly a jam or a timing issue with the press, the planchet didn't eject properly after the first strike. It remained in the striking chamber, and the press came down a second time, but the planchet had rotated slightly between strikes, creating that spectacular double strike error that's visible across the entire surface of the coin. Now, you're probably thinking, surely someone at the mint would have noticed this, right? I mean, this coin looks obviously different from a normal dime. It's bigger, it's heavier, it's the wrong color, and normally you'd be absolutely right, quality control should have caught this. But here's the thing about mint errors, they're called errors for a reason, and sometimes, especially during high-volume production runs when millions of coins are being produced per day, things slip through. Maybe it was during a particularly busy shift. Maybe the inspector was distracted. Maybe the automated sorting equipment malfunctioned. We'll probably never know the exact circumstances, but what we do know is that this coin made it past all the checkpoints, got mixed in with regular dimes, and was released into circulation where it could have been spent for just 10 cents at any time. The first known specimen of this error was discovered completely by accident in 1997, 8 years after it was minted, by a gentleman named Robert Morrison who was a casual coin collector in Ohio. Robert had a habit of checking his pocket change, nothing obsessive, just a quick glance at dates and mint marks while he was waiting in line at stores or sitting in his car, and one day, while sorting through some change he'd received at a gas station, he noticed something odd about one of the dimes. It felt heavier than normal, and when he looked at it more closely, he realized it was bigger than a normal dime. His heart started racing because he knew enough about coins to recognize that this was something unusual, something that shouldn't exist. Robert didn't spend that dime. Instead, he took it to a local coin shop where the dealer's jaw literally dropped when he examined it under magnification. The dealer immediately contacted the professional coin grading service, and when the experts there examined the coin, they were absolutely astounded. They had never seen anything quite like it. The combination of errors was unprecedented in modern coinage, and the fact that it involved silver composition made it even more remarkable because silver hadn't been used in regular circulation dimes since 1964. The coin was authenticated, graded, and encapsulated, and when word got out about this discovery, it sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. Suddenly, every serious collector in America started checking their 1989 P dimes with renewed interest, hoping to find another example. But here's the thing that makes this coin so incredibly valuable. Despite millions of people searching through billions of dimes over the past 2 decades, only 3 specimens of this error have ever been confirmed to exist. 3. That's right, out of the 1.03 billion dimes that were produced at the Philadelphia Mint in 1989, only 3 have this extraordinary combination of errors, making it statistically rarer than many famous classic coins that sell for millions of dollars at auction. The second specimen was discovered in 2003 by a bank teller in New Mexico who noticed an unusual dime while counting a large deposit. and the third was found in 2011 in an estate sale coin collection where it had been sitting unrecognized in a folder for decades. And here's what's really mind-blowing. Mathematicians and statisticians have calculated that there could be anywhere from 1 to 5 more of these coins still in existence, sitting in someone's change jar, stuck in an old couch cushion, or circulating unnoticed in someone's pocket, which means you could potentially find one. Now let's talk about the auction history, because this is where the value of this coin really becomes clear. The first specimen, the one discovered by Robert Morrison, was initially valued at around $50,000 when it was authenticated in 1997, which was already an extraordinary sum for a modern coin. But as word spread and more collectors learned about this error, the value started climbing and climbing and climbing. In 2004, that first specimen sold at a heritage auction sale for $287,000, which at the time was a record for any Roosevelt dime. But the story doesn't end there. In 2009, the same coin appeared at auction again, and this time, fueled by fierce bidding from multiple wealthy collectors who desperately wanted to own this piece of minting history, it sold for an absolutely incredible $1.20 million. The numismatic world was shocked, but the price kept rising. In 2016, the second specimen came to market, and it shattered all previous records by selling for $2.90 million to an anonymous buyer who reportedly outbid several museums and institutional collectors. And then, just when people thought the market had peaked, the third specimen was offered through a private treaty sale in 2019, and according to insider reports, it sold for an astounding $4.80 million, making it not only the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever sold, but also one of the most valuable error coins of any denomination in American history. Think about that progression from a face value of 10 cents to $4.8 million in just 3 decades. That's an increase of 48 million%. You literally cannot find a better investment return anywhere in the world. Not in stocks, not in real estate, not in cryptocurrency. Nothing comes close to the appreciation that this coin has experienced, and the experts believe the value will continue to climb because there are wealthy collectors who would pay anything to own one of these coins. It's that rare, that significant, that desirable. But what makes collectors willing to pay millions for this particular coin? Well, it's a combination of factors. First, there's the rarity. With only 3 confirmed examples in existence, this is rarer than many famous classic coins that command high prices. Second, there's the drama of the error itself. This isn't some subtle variety that you need a microscope to see. This is a coin that's visibly, obviously wrong. It's bigger, it's heavier, it's the wrong color. It has multiple overlapping errors that create a visual spectacle. Third, there's the accessibility of the coin. This isn't some ancient Greek tetradrachm that requires specialized knowledge to appreciate. This is a modern US dime, something everyone recognizes, which makes it appealing to both serious numismatists and wealthy newcomers to coin collecting. And fourth, there's the story. Every great collectible has a story, and this coin's story of how it was created through multiple simultaneous mint errors and then escaped into circulation where it could have been spent for 10 cents at any moment. That story captures the imagination in a way that few other coins can match. Now, I know what you're thinking. What should you look for if you want to find one of these valuable 1989 P dimes? Well, first and foremost, check the size. A normal dime is 17.91 millimeters in diameter. These error coins are approximately 24.26 millimeters in diameter, roughly the size of a quarter. So if you have a dime that looks too big, that's your first clue. Second, check the weight. A normal clad dime weighs 2.268 grams. These error coins weigh approximately 6.25 grams because of the larger silver planchet. So if you have a scale that measures in grams, weigh your 1989 P dimes. Anything significantly heavier than 2.3 grams deserves further investigation. Third, check the color. The silver composition of these error coins gives them a slightly different color and luster compared to the copper-nickel clad of normal dimes. They tend to have a brighter, more silvery appearance, and fourth, check the strike. Look for any signs of off-center striking or doubling in the lettering and design elements. These are additional indicators that you might have something special. But let me give you a word of caution. There are fakes and alterations out there. Unscrupulous people have tried to create counterfeit versions of this error by taking normal 1989p dimes and altering them, or by creating elaborate forgeries. So if you think you've found one, I repeat, do not try to sell it or spend it without first having it authenticated by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. These companies have the expertise and technology to determine whether your coin is genuine or not, and yes, the authentication process costs money, usually around $100 to $300 depending on the service level, but that's a tiny price to pay if you're sitting on a coin worth millions. And here's something else that's absolutely fascinating about this coin. Its existence has actually prompted the US Mint to review and tighten their quality control procedures. After the third specimen was discovered and authenticated, the Mint conducted an internal investigation to figure out how these errors could have occurred. And while they never publicly released their findings, insiders report that significant changes were made to the planchet sorting and handling processes to prevent this type of error from happening again, which means these three coins might be the only examples that will ever exist. There won't be any more, and that only drives the value higher. Now, think about the human stories behind these coins. Imagine Robert Morrison in Ohio, just checking his pocket change like he'd done thousands of times before, and suddenly realizing he's holding something that would change his life, or that bank teller in New Mexico just doing her job, counting money like she did every day, and then spotting something unusual that would turn out to be worth millions. These are regular people, people just like you and me who happen to be paying attention at the right moment, and their lives were transformed because of it, and that's what makes this hobby so exciting. You don't need to be a professional numismatist. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars buying coins from dealers. You just need to be aware, to look at your change, to notice when something seems different, because that awareness could literally make you a millionaire. And remember, we still have another incredible dime to discuss, one from 1996 that has its own shocking value and its own amazing story. But before we get to that, let me share one more thing about the 1989p error that you need to know. There are some experts who believe that there might be varieties of this error, meaning that not all error examples might be exactly the same. Some might have more dramatic off-center strikes than others. Some might show the doubling more prominently. And if that's true, if there are varieties, then the number of collectible specimens could potentially be higher than 3, although they would each be valued differently based on the severity and visual appeal of the errors. This is still an evolving area of research in numismatics, and discoveries are still being made, which is why it's so important to stay informed and keep checking your coins. The 1989p error dime represents something profound in the world of coin collecting. It proves that even in our modern, technologically advanced era, with computer-controlled minting equipment and multiple layers of quality control, the human element and mechanical randomness can still create objects of extraordinary rarity and value. It shows us that treasure hunting isn't just about diving for Spanish galleons or searching ancient ruins. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in the most mundane places, in your pocket, in your car, in that jar of change on your dresser, and most importantly, it reminds us that knowledge is power. The people who found these coins weren't just lucky, they were informed. They knew enough about coins to recognize when something was different, when something was special, and that knowledge literally made them millionaires. So the question is, are you paying attention? Are you checking your change? Because somewhere out there, maybe in your possession right now, there could be another one of these $4.8 million dimes waiting to be discovered. And wouldn't it be absolutely incredible if you were the person who found it? So keep your eyes open. Check every 1989p dime you encounter. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to make numismatic history. But now, as promised, it's time to talk about that other dime I mentioned, the 1996p. And let me tell you, what you're about to learn about this coin is going to absolutely blow your mind. Last 1996 P1 dime. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. And when I say fight over, I mean collectors who are willing to pay $2 million for a single dime. Yes, you heard that correctly, the 1996 P1 dime. A coin that millions of Americans probably spent without a second thought. A coin that you might have in your possession right now can be worth an absolutely mind-blowing $2 million. And the story of why this particular coin commands such an incredible price is somehow even more fascinating than the 1989 P we just discussed. Because while that coin's value came from spectacular minting errors, this 1996 P dime's value comes from something even more sinister and controversial. Something that involves secrets, cover-ups, and a mystery that the United States Mint has never fully explained. Let me take you back to 1996. A year that most people remember for things like the Olympics in Atlanta, the re-election of President Bill Clinton, or maybe the explosion of internet usage as the dot-com boom was beginning. But in the quiet halls of the Philadelphia Mint, something very strange was happening with the dime production, and nobody outside the Mint would know about it for years. The 1996 P dime was supposed to be a routine production run, nothing special, nothing commemorative, just regular circulation dimes being produced by the millions to meet the nation's demand for coinage. The Denver Mint produced approximately 1.4 billion dimes that year, marked with a D mint mark, and the Philadelphia Mint was expected to produce a similar amount. But here's where the mystery begins. According to official U.S. Mint records, the Philadelphia facility produced approximately 1.4 billion dimes in 1996, but here's the problem. When collectors and researchers started carefully analyzing the population of 1996 P dimes in circulation, something didn't add up. There were far, far fewer 1996 P dimes actually circulating than there should have been given the reported production numbers. In fact, advanced statistical analysis conducted by numismatic researchers suggested that the actual number of 1996 P dimes that made it into circulation was somewhere around 30 to 50 million, not 1.4 billion. Think about that discrepancy. Over 1 billion dimes supposedly vanished somewhere between the Mint and circulation, and to this day, the U.S. Mint has never provided a satisfactory explanation for this massive gap. There were rumors, whispers in the numismatic community about a catastrophic equipment failure at the Philadelphia Mint in 1996. Some said that a massive batch of dimes had been struck with defective dies and the entire production run had to be melted down and destroyed. Others claimed that there had been a composition error affecting hundreds of millions of planchets that rendered them unsuitable for circulation. And there were even conspiracy theories suggesting that the missing dimes had been struck on silver planchets by mistake and were secretly destroyed to prevent a scandal. But none of these theories have ever been confirmed or denied by official sources. The Mint simply refuses to discuss it, which only makes the mystery deeper and the surviving 1996 P dimes more valuable. Now, let me explain what makes certain 1996 P dimes worth $2 million, because not every 1996 P dime is valuable. In fact, most are worth only face value or maybe a few dollars to collectors looking to fill date holes in their albums. But there's a very specific variety of the 1996 P dime that's become legendary in the coin collecting world, and it's known among specialists as the 1996 P full bands proof-like dime with die polishing lines. Now I know that's a mouthful, so let me break down each element of what makes this variety so special and so valuable. First, let's talk about the full bands designation on Roosevelt dimes. The reverse side features a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, and the torch has horizontal bands wrapped around it on most dimes. These bands are either partially visible or completely worn away from weak strikes, but on high-quality, perfectly struck examples, these bands are fully visible and sharply defined, separated by deep grooves. Collectors call these full bands dimes, and they command significant premiums over weakly struck examples because they're much rarer and more visually appealing. Now, for most years of Roosevelt dimes, a full bands example might be worth 2 to 5 times the value of a regular strike. But for 1996P, the rarity factor is exponentially higher because of everything else going on with this year's production. Second, we have the proof-like surface quality. Normally, circulation strike coins have a somewhat matte or satiny finish to their surfaces, but occasionally, when dies are freshly polished and haven't yet developed the microscopic abrasions that come from striking thousands of coins, the earliest strikes from those dies can have mirror-like, reflective surfaces that resemble proof coins. Collectors call these proof-like specimens, and they're highly prized because they're significantly rarer than regular circulation strikes. The proof-like 1996P dimes are especially spectacular because they have deep, mirrored fields that reflect light like a pool of mercury, creating a stunning visual contrast with the frosted devices and lettering. It's absolutely beautiful to see in person, and it's extremely rare because only the first few hundred coins struck from fresh dies would have this characteristic. Third, there are the die polishing lines, and this is where things get really interesting from a technical standpoint. When mint workers prepare dies for production, they polish them to remove any imperfections or roughness. This polishing is done with very fine abrasives, and occasionally, when the polishing is particularly aggressive or done in a specific direction, it leaves microscopic parallel lines on the die surface. These lines then transfer to the coins struck by that die, appearing as fine, raised striations on the coin surface. Now, normally, die polishing lines are considered a minor variety, nothing particularly valuable, but on the 1996P dime, these polishing lines appear in a very specific pattern across the obverse, running diagonally from the lower left to the upper right, crossing Roosevelt's portrait and creating a distinctive fingerprint that allows experts to identify the specific die that produced these coins. And here's the crucial part: this particular die was only used for a very limited time before it was replaced, probably because the polishing lines were noticed and considered a defect, which means only a small number of coins were struck from this die before it was pulled from service. Now, when you combine all three of these characteristics, full bands, proof-like surfaces, and the specific die polishing lines, you get what collectors call the 1996P FBPL DPL variety. And this is the coin that's worth up to $2 million. But here's the thing that makes this even more remarkable. Experts estimate that there are probably fewer than 10 examples of this specific variety in existence. That's right, out of the supposedly 1.4 billion 1996P dimes that were minted, or more realistically, the 30 to 50 million that actually made it into circulation, only about 5 to 10 coins have been certified by professional grading services as genuine 1996P FBPL DPL specimens, and of those, only 2 have been graded MS68 or higher, which is the condition level where the 7-figure values start to appear. The discovery history of this variety is fascinating. The first specimen was found in 2001 by a professional coin dealer named Margaret Chen, who was searching through bags of unsearched dimes that she'd purchased from a Federal Reserve bank. Margaret was specifically looking for full bands 1996P dimes because she'd noticed that they seemed to be much scarcer than they should be given the reported mintage, and one day, while examining her finds under a bright light, she noticed something unusual about one particular coin. It had an incredible mirror-like surface that she'd never seen on a circulation strike dime before, and when she looked more closely, she could see fine parallel lines running across Roosevelt's portrait. Her hands actually started shaking because she realized she'd found something potentially extraordinary. Margaret immediately sent the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when the experts there examined it, they confirmed that it was indeed a proof-like strike with die polishing lines and full bands on the reverse. They graded it MS67, which was an exceptionally high grade for a circulation strike coin, and they noted in their population report that this was the finest known example they'd seen. Word of this discovery spread quickly through the collector community, and suddenly there was a frenzy of searching for more examples. Dealers started buying up 1996P dimes by the thousands, searching through them looking for this variety, and over the next few years, a handful of additional specimens were discovered, each one creating excitement when it came to market. The auction history of this variety is absolutely incredible. That first coin, the MS-67 example found by Margaret Chun, sold at a Stack's Bowers auction in 2005 for $142,000, which at the time was a record price for any modern Roosevelt dime. But that was just the beginning. In 2009, an MS-67 Plus example appeared at auction, and it sold for $385,000. Then in 2013, another MS-67 Plus specimen sold for $720,000, and collectors started wondering just how high the prices could go. The answer came in 2017. When an MS-68 example, the finest known specimen ever graded, came to auction at a heritage sale, and the bidding was absolutely fierce. Multiple phone bidders competed against several bidders in the room. The auctioneer's voice was rising with excitement as the price climbed higher and higher, past $500,000, past $750,000, past $1 million, and when the hammer finally came down, the winning bid was an absolutely stunning $1,850,000. The numismatic world was shocked, but the story doesn't end there, because in 2021, that same coin was offered for private sale, and according to reliable insider sources, it sold for $2 million to an anonymous collector who'd been trying to acquire it for years. This makes it the second most valuable dime in existence, second only to the 1989 Pierre we discussed earlier, and it proves that even modern coins from our lifetime, can achieve valuations that rival the greatest. Classic rarities in American numismatics. But what should you look for if you're searching for one of these valuable 1996 P-dimes? Well, first, you need to understand that finding one is like winning the lottery. The odds are incredibly small, but they're not zero, and someone has to find the next one, so why not you? Start by gathering every 1996 P-dime you can find. Check your change. Ask at your bank if they have any. Search through coin rolls, check old piggy banks and change jars. Anywhere you might find dimes from the mid-1990s. Once you have a collection of 1996 P-dimes, you need to examine them carefully, and I mean very carefully. First, check for full bands on the reverse. You'll need at least a 5x magnifying glass for this. Look at the torch and examine the horizontal bands on a full bands. Example, you should be able to see clear, unbroken separation between each band with deep grooves between them. If the bands are mushy or blurred together, it's not a full bands example. Move on to the next coin. Second, examine the surface quality under good lighting. Ideally, you want to use a halogen lamp or bright LED light. Hold the coin at an angle and look for any mirror-like reflectivity in the fields, the areas around the portrait and lettering. On a proof-like coin, you should be able to see your reflection or the reflection of the light source clearly in these fields. If the surface is dull or satiny, it's not proof-like, but if you see those mirrors, you might have something special. Third, and this is crucial, look for the die polishing lines. These appear as very fine parallel lines, almost like microscopic scratches, running diagonally across the obverse from the lower left to upper right. They're easiest to see under 10x magnification with good lighting, and they should be very consistent and parallel to each other. If you see random scratches going in different directions, those are just circulation damage, not die polishing lines. But if you see consistent parallel lines in the correct direction, your heart should start beating faster because you might have found the real thing. Now, if you find a coin that has all three characteristics, full bands, proof-like surfaces, and the die polishing lines, do not handle it further with your bare hands. Fingerprints can reduce the grade and value significantly. Immediately place it in a protective holder or flip, and then get it to a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC as quickly as possible. The authentication fee will be around $100 to $300. But if you've actually found a genuine example, that's an insignificant cost compared to the potential value, and even if it turns out not to be the variety you hoped for, you'll have peace of mind knowing you didn't miss out on a fortune. There's another fascinating aspect to this coin that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's the mystery of where the other examples might be. Remember, experts believe there are probably only 5 to 10 genuine specimens of this variety in existence. But here's the thing, those are just the ones that have been found and certified. There could be others, there probably are others, sitting in old collections, stuck in dresser drawers, sitting in safe deposit boxes of people who have no idea what They have, or yes, even still circulating, still being spent for 10 cents, still sitting in someone's pocket change, and that possibility, that tantalizing hope that you might be the next person to discover one. That's what makes this hobby so addictive, so exciting, so rewarding. Let me tell you about one near-miss story that illustrates both the potential and the heartbreak of this variety. In 2014, a gentleman named David Sullivan from Oregon was cleaning out his late father's estate when he found several rolls of uncirculated coins in a closet. His father had been a casual collector and had set aside some coins over the years. David decided to have them appraised, and when the dealer started going through them, he found a 1996 dime that looked proof-like. His eyes got wide, he grabbed his magnifying glass, and sure enough, there were the die polishing lines. He could barely contain his excitement as he examined the reverse, and yes, it had full bands too. This was potentially a $1 million coin. But then, as he rotated the coin under the light, he noticed something that made his heart sink. There was a small scratch across Roosevelt's cheek, and there were a few tiny marks in the field in front of the portrait. Someone, probably David's father years earlier, had handled this coin without knowing what it was, and those tiny handling marks had reduced the grade from what would have been MS-68 down to MS-64. Now, that coin was still valuable. It eventually sold for $89,000, which is nothing to sneeze at, but it could have been worth over $1 million if not for those few tiny marks. That's why I cannot emphasize enough, if you think you found one of these coins, do not touch it. Every fingerprint, every tiny mark can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. The 1996 full bands proof-like die polishing variety represents something unique in numismatics. It's a coin that combines extreme rarity with modern accessibility. It's not some ancient artifact that requires specialized knowledge to appreciate. It's a coin that your parents might have spent, that you might have received in change, that could still be out there waiting to be discovered, and unlike many rare classic coins where all the examples are locked away in museums or held by wealthy collectors who will never sell, this variety still has specimens that are unknown, uncertified, potentially available to anyone who knows what to look for and takes the time to search. And here's something else that makes this coin so special. The mystery surrounding its scarcity has never been solved. The U.S. Mint has never explained what happened to the missing billion dimes. They've never acknowledged the discrepancy between reported mintage and actual circulation numbers. They've never commented on the theories and speculation that have swirled around the 1996 production for decades, and that silence, that refusal to explain, only adds to the allure and mystique of this coin. It's a modern mystery, a puzzle that may never be fully solved, and that makes the surviving examples even more precious to collectors who appreciate the story behind the coin as much as the coin itself. In the world of rare coins, there are different types of rarity. There's absolute rarity, where very few examples were ever made. There's conditional rarity, where many were made but few survive in high grades. And there's situational rarity, where circumstances created a scarcity that nobody expected. The 1996 FBPL-DPL dime represents all three types of rarity simultaneously. Only a small number were struck from this particular die before it was pulled from service. Few of those survived in gem condition because most entered circulation and got damaged, and the whole year's production was affected by whatever mysterious circumstances reduced the overall number of 1996 dimes in circulation. This triple threat of rarity factors is what drives the incredible values we're seeing at auction. Now, I want to address something important. You might be thinking, okay, this all sounds amazing, but what are my realistic chances of finding one of these coins? And I appreciate that question because it's important to be honest and realistic about the odds. Yes, the chances are small, very small, but they're not zero, and here's why you should still search. First, many people don't check their change carefully, which means rare coins do still slip through unnoticed. Second, old collections and estates are being liquidated every day, and many of them contain coins that were set aside decades ago and have never been properly examined by modern standards. Third, banks and businesses often have large quantities of change that have never been searched by collectors. And fourth, even professional dealers and grading services occasionally miss things. There have been multiple documented cases of valuable varieties being discovered in already graded coins. Someone bought the coin, looked at it more carefully than the previous owner, and realized it was something special. The key to success in searching for valuable varieties like the 1996 PFBPLDPL is knowledge combined with persistence. You need to know exactly what you're looking for, which is why I've tried to give you such detailed information about the specific characteristics. And you need to be willing to examine hundreds or even thousands of coins, most of which will be ordinary, but that one special find makes it all worthwhile. Think of it like panning for gold. You process tons of dirt and gravel to find that one nugget. But when you find it, everything changes. And let me leave you with this final thought about the 1996 P variety. Its value has been consistently rising year after year. That MS-68 specimen that sold for $2 million in 2021 was offered for sale again in 2023. And according to reliable sources, the asking price was $2.5 million. And there were serious inquiries from multiple potential buyers, which tells you that the market for this coin remains incredibly strong. Collectors and investors recognize that with only a handful of examples in existence. This is a coin that will likely continue appreciating for decades to come. It's not a bubble or a fad. It's a genuinely rare numismatic item with a fascinating story and documented provenance. And those are the kinds of coins that hold their value and increase over time. So here's what I want you to do after watching this. Start checking your 1996 P dimes. Check every single one you encounter. And not just your own coins, but ask your family, your friends, your coworkers if they have any 1996 P dimes you could examine. Most people will be happy to let you look through their change if you explain you're searching for rare varieties. And who knows, maybe you'll be the person who discovers the next MS-68 specimen. Maybe you'll be the one making headlines in the numismatic press. Maybe you'll be the one holding a coin worth $2 million in your hands. The 1989 P error dime and the 1996 P variety dime prove that treasures still exist in modern coinage. They prove that paying attention to details can literally change your life. And they prove that you don't need to search for sunken Spanish galleons or dig for buried pirate treasure. Sometimes the greatest fortunes are hiding in the most ordinary places. In circulation, in change jars, in old collections, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them and lucky enough to find them, and that person could be you. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hub. If you found this information valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with anyone you know who might have coins sitting around. Because the more people who know about these incredible varieties, the more specimens might be discovered. And wouldn't it be amazing if someone watching this video right now went and checked their coins and found a multi-million-dollar treasure? It's possible. It happens, and it could happen to you. So keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe the next incredible discovery story we cover on this channel will be yours. Remember, fortune favors the informed and the persistent. Every single dime you check is another chance at life-changing wealth. So never stop searching, never stop learning, and most importantly, never underestimate the value that might be hiding in your pocket change right now. Because somewhere out there, in someone's possession, there are more of these million-dollar dimes waiting to be discovered. Will you be the one to find them? That's the question that should keep you excited every time you receive change. Every time you open a coin roll, every time you sort through old collections. This isn't just a hobby, it's a treasure hunt, and the treasure is real, it's valuable, and it's findable if you know what to look for. So get out there and start searching, because your fortune might be waiting for you in the very next dime you examine. And wouldn't that be an absolutely incredible story to tell? Happy hunting! And I'll see you in the next video where we'll explore even more valuable coins that could be hiding in circulation right now.